Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. It's a rainy day here in Florida and I wanted to make a video for this weekend. So anyway, this is one of the most requested things besides the ambient light kit I installed next week, spacers. So I've had spacers on mine for a little while. So I'm going to show you what sizes I picked and just how easy they are to install. And the other thing I did is kind of cool eBay score. I got a carbon fiber engine cover. So I'm going to just be swapping over the badge and cleaning up the carbon fiber lip before we put it on our car. So stay tuned. So spacers are purely a cosmetic modification only. So I don't like how cars come from the factory. Some of them really bad, where they look like a Winnebago where the tires are so far inside. So in my preference, and a lot of people's preference, they look best when the tires are almost at the fenders. Never sticking out, but almost at the fender. So mine's lowered on H&R springs, but on the front, they're actually pretty flush, but in the back, they're about 3/4 of an inch. So I tried two different combinations and I've settled on a 10mm spacer for the rear is my favorite. So let's show you just how to install these. All right, so obviously installing spacers is not rocket science. So I'm gonna go a little bit more in depth and kind of show you how to measure for spacers. It's not rocket science either. We're just gonna use a block of wood with a right angle on it and simply hold it up to the tire. Do I need to repeat myself? Okay, so obviously hold it at what you think is perfectly at a 90-degree right angle. Use a level if you need to, and just mark it. So if you can see in this one, we're only that far out when you know, so whatever that is, like that's like 5mm or less. So here we are in the rear. Take the exact same measurement, try to make it exactly 90 degrees. And we're closer to about 5/8 of an inch on this one. Okay, so now we're over at the famous pool table where I'm going to show you how I calculated what size spacers I wanted for my car. So the fronts, this was our front mark, and as you can see, it's pretty close to the fender. The tire was exactly, it says 6.6mm from the edge. So, and I think that's ideal, and I'd like to match that in the rear. So the rear happens to be exactly 16.6mm. So 10mm narrower in the rear than it is in the front. So simply, that's how I determined I wanted a 10mm spacer. Anyway, so now onto the bolts. Again, it's not rocket science. Measure your stock bolts. Most Mercedes have a 27mm thing, and they are a ball type seat. So you're just going to need a bolt that is 10mm or whatever size spacer you determine you want for your cars, longer than the stock ones. So you never ever want to go too short. Obviously, you're going to break a wheel off your car. And then there is a problem with going too long. So for example, these ones came with these crappy bolts and they're like 55mm long. If you were to put these in there, they're going to destroy whatever's inside the hub. And in the back of the E63, that's where your parking brake is. So I went ahead and measured just to figure out the parking brake assembly starts right around 5 to 7mm inside the hub. So you really don't want to go more than maybe 5mm too long. So ideally, you like to just get a 37mm bolt. When I was buying these, I couldn't find any at the time, so I ended up going with a 40mm bolt. So they're 3mm too long, which is plenty short enough not to hit the parking brake. And the last thing I'll mention with bolts is don't cheap out on your bolts. You have a very expensive car with a lot of horsepower. The last thing you want to do is just shear some wheel bolts off because you use some crappy Chinese things. These are unmarked. They don't even tell you anything. Do not use these. Buy some brand name stuff. So H&R, there's a couple other good brands, but use the H&R stuff. They're stamped with 10.9, and you know the quality just because H&R's been around forever and they make good stuff. Okay, so let me show you to get these on there. Obviously, it's just taking a wheel to put it on, but I'm going to show you a couple things that you need to pay attention to before you do that. So, not using a lift today. I'm going to use a jack like a peasant. So the way I always take wheels off is always take the weight off the tire, but still have it touching the ground. And that's when you can break the bolts loose. Once they're all broken loose, then you can lift it off the ground. All right, so the two things we're going to check before we install these to make sure that these sit both flush on the rim and on the hub. You don't want them to have any movement at all. If there's any movement, you might need to clearance them or just return them and buy a better quality one. So these things actually did fit great, and there's no rocking. The hub centric is perfect. There's no play back and forth. Okay, and same thing on the hub. There's no play. They don't move around. So obviously I just barely tighten them on the first pass. And then I always do a double torque. So I go through and torque them half of the way, and then I'll torque them the rest of the way on the second pass. After you've installed your spacers, you can just double check to make sure you can see that it's flush all the way around here and that there's no like gaps. That's the only thing you really have to worry about with spacers. So now we can check the stance. As you can see, they don't stick out. And in my opinion, that's my personal preference. And I think that's ideal. So now we're done with that. We're gonna come over here and we're gonna get our new engine cover. So I need to remove this, and I'm not sure how it comes off, I think through heat. And there's also just some minor scuffs and scratches on here. So we're just gonna clean up the carbon fiber with a little bit of maybe some sanding and some buffing and get this installed as well. Alright, so I definitely want to transfer my badge over because we have Miss Jacqueline make my car. I think she needs credit for this motor. Turns out Jacqueline is one of the, I think one of 2 female AMG engine producers, so we want to make sure we get her label on the new one. So I looked on the back of these. I can't find any evidence of like a rivet or anything, so I think they're just pushed on there with heat. So we're just going to use a heat gun to see if we can get it off. So anyway, we got some pry tools. Sorry, Mark. It's kind of interesting to think that the last person that touched this was Mark and Jacqueline. They thought it'd probably never get removed. Well, there you go. Mark didn't put it on very well. It's mostly dust on this side, a little bit of adhesive left on that side. So let's see how well Jackie put hers on there. I can already tell you who's winning. Jackie's is much stronger. There you go, Jackie's at least pushed hers down and not let a bunch of sand get in there. Alright, so time to make this shiny, so we're just going to use this to kind of prop it up. And I don't think I'm even going to use the big one, I'm just going to use the little one. So a little bit of 3D1 on a drill to make this thing perfect. So now we'll just wipe it off. This thing looks perfect. So now, is there enough adhesive for this to reinstall? Probably not. I don't want to be like Mark, so we're probably going to swap out all the adhesive here for new adhesive. A little bit of alcohol there. Jacqueline has a new home on the carbon fiber piece. Feels nice and tight. You know what, screw it. We got some more ceramic coat. Let's just ceramic coat this. So a little bit more of this alcohol panel white. Like our own tiny little applicator. Now this is probably an unnecessary step, but I like this car and might as well. All right, guys. That is perfect. Look at that. All right, let's go slap this back in the car. Perfect. All right, Jacqueline, new home. And there you have it, guys. Jacqueline's motor has a brand new engine cover. I think it looks great. This is probably my best eBay finds.